Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 203, cover dated March 1986. So the cover here by John Romita Jr. and Al Williamson, featuring Phoenix versus the Beyonder, and the cover caption, "This universe isn't big enough for both of them." And here in the background we have San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge again. So this issue picks up from the ending of the previous one. I'm going to open it up now to a rather surprising splash page. So we start with a flashback to events that actually weren't featured in Avengers Annual number 10. So we're seeing these for the first time, but Avengers Annual number 10 picks up immediately with the aftermath of this fight on the Golden Gate Bridge between Rogue and Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel. So creative team here: Chris Claremont writer, John Romita Jr. penciler, Al Williamson guest inker, Tom Orzechowski letterer, Glynis Oliver colorist, and Ann Nocenti editor. So quite a striking, literally splash page here with Carol punching out Rogue. And then we get to see what went down in that fight between them on the Golden Gate Bridge, and how in this moment when they're struggling against each other, Rogue absorbs, as it turns out, permanently Carol Danvers' powers, but also her memories and psyche, leaving Carol a blank slate, a tabula rasa. And then we get to see Rogue throwing Carol's body off the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was just at this point, before Carol's body hit the water, she's rescued by Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman. So that's all in Avengers Annual number 10, and I've got a video on that particular annual written by Chris Claremont here on the channel. So Rogue is in the present now, reminiscing about that time and about how it nearly drove her crazy, having two psyches in her head, and how she had to go to Charles Xavier for help. And that's another issue featured on the channel, Uncanny X-Men 181, which shows Rogue approaching Professor X at the X-Mansion looking for help because she's going crazy with Carol's psyche in her mind. And Rogue is regretful about what she did at the time, what she did to Carol, and thinks no matter how much good she does, it'll never make up for what she did. Those scales, nothing will ever balance them. So then we pick up with Rogue returning to where the X-Men are based now in San Francisco, and we learn that they're lodging with Jessica Drew. She has given them her home there to stay in. And also we learned that Nightcrawler wasn't teleported to San Francisco in the previous issue. The Beyonder left him behind in New York. And so she's wondering what's happened to Nightcrawler. And when she arrives at the house, she finds Kitty Pryde in the garden, dressed in a kimono and seemingly meditating. And it turns out that Kitty is bonded to Illyana Rasputin's mystic armour and bears now her soul sword. And this is all in the wake of events in New Mutants number 37. A little editorial note here would have been useful, but New Mutants 37, when the Beyonder fought the New Mutants, or rather vice versa, and he killed them and expunged them and all memory of them from existence, including also the X-Mansion. And the only one who remembers the New Mutants and Illyana is Kitty, and she thinks that it's on account of her special bond with Illyana. So here she is taking off the kimono and revealing herself fully wearing that armor of Illyana's, but Rogue doesn't remember her. And so Kitty's deeply upset, and this is all part of what's going on with Secret Wars 2 and the Beyonder's machinations and interference in the lives of heroes in the Marvel Universe. So Kitty is upset in terms of what kind of chance do they have against a creature like the Beyonder. We're only human. And Rachel then switches on the light here. I like this device by John Romita Jr., where she's in silhouette there, and then she turns on her power, and it's as if the light over the porch is going on. So Rachel, it turns out, after the events of the previous issue, she's been left with the Beyonder's power, the portion of his power he gave her, and she means to use it, and she's got a plan. She's not going to confront the Beyonder directly, but she's got a plan to destroy the entire universe as a radical way of dealing with the threat of the Beyonder. So she wants some help from her friends. She can't do it completely on her own, she says. She needs their strength, their life force, their spirits to sustain her. And she's gotten this idea from something that her mother, Jean Grey, the original Phoenix, did by way of sacrificing her life for the universe. And it will turn out that what she's referring to and her idea is to go into the Macran crystal, last seen in Uncanny X-Men 108, which Jean Grey Phoenix went into in order to save the universe from being sucked into a neutron galaxy. And Rachel's plan is to do the opposite, to let that neutron galaxy free of the crystal so that the entire universe is sucked into it like a black hole, and taking out the Beyonder. So that's the plan. Kitty's on board. Rogue agrees. And it's interesting here, this point where Rogue's voice pattern, her accent, her southern accent, gives way to Rogue calls Carol Danvers a Yankee, to the northern, let's call it, pronunciation. She goes from I don't know to I don't know, as Carol Danvers asserts herself, and Rogue says she's a part of me. What you propose is horrible, beyond comprehension, almost obscene, but necessary, says Rachel. And so Rogue, Carol, thinks that the Beyonder is so much worse, the far greater of two evils, some choice, but she goes with it. And she even says, but is it Carol saying it? If I believed in God, I'd pray for forgiveness. So I'm not quite sure who's the atheist here. I think it would be Carol, to be honest. And then Rachel has their spirits, and up pops Jessica Drew, who's no longer got the power of Spider-Man, and she volunteers also to give her soul spirit to Rachel for the upcoming challenge. And then Rachel enters the house, and this is interesting. Without asking, she takes the spirits of the other X-Men, Colossus, Wolverine. I like this little detail of Wolverine sleeping. Well, he's sleeping naked on his bed, but also with the beer cans, empty beer cans on the ground. And Magneto, she takes his soul spirit, but Ororo's awake and argues with her and tells her it's wrong. You must stop while you're still able. And Rachel forcibly takes Ororo's soul force. So this is an issue that kind of has a philosophical dimension to it in terms of the moral questions raised, and whether because of the absolute threat of the Beyonder, Rachel is justified in these decisions she's making and in forcibly taking the soul force or spirits of her unwilling comrades and her sleeping comrades. And then she departs the earth and arrives, goes past the moon, observed by Uatu, the Watcher. An interesting choice here by Romita Jr., who chooses to draw Uatu like Kirby did. So it's this big, bulky, stocky version of the Watcher. different from the form of the Watcher drawn by John Byrne in Uncanny X-Men 137, for example. So interesting choice that by Romita Jr. And then Rachel Phoenix leaves the Milky Way behind and makes her way to, as it turns out, the Starship. And she explains what she's doing there to Professor X. And she takes their spirits, the spirits of Lilandra, Professor X, and the Starjammers. And then she arrives at her destination, which is the planet that has no name, the world that has no name, which is the location of the Macran crystal. And it's got its guardian there, Jaff, and Phoenix deals with him quite quickly. And then she enters into the crystal, and we have materializing here the spirits of the X-Men and the Starjammers. And then she explains what she's going to do, that she's going to release the neutron galaxy, the ultimate black hole, that everyone will perish, but so hopefully will the Beyonder. And Aurora intervenes and says, no, you must not do this. We fought to heal, to save, for such a cause I would and shall gladly give my life, as your mother eventually did. But she is not on board for killing. And Rachel doesn't listen. She says she has no choice and she's not going to be stopped by Aurora or anyone else. And so she sets about releasing the neutron galaxy. But what happens is that in that moment, psychically, spiritually, she becomes aware of how each planet is a light, and each thing that lives upon that planet a mad, crazy, wondrous collage of colour, wildly beautiful, ever-changing. And just look at Romita Jr. and Al Williamson and Glynis Oliver's interpretation of what Claremont has given them in his script to realise visually. This is a stunning double-page spread here, and really does evoke, paint for us what Claremont is trying to communicate with his words. Races newly born, others breathing their last, animals and sentients being ruled by passion, by intellect, committing acts magnificent and awful, glorious and obscene, savage tribes, civilized societies, warriors, estates, oppressed, oppressors, the best, the worst, who love, hate, create, smash, slay, are slain. Impossibly she touches every one, regardless of how great or small their lives become hers. For this timeless instant, she experiences their dreams, their yearnings, their terrors, all they were and are and hope to be, the totality of their beings. So wow, this is some magnificent moment here, and as I said, beautifully realized visually on the page. Just amazing what you can do in comics, yes? And here we have her beginning now to struggle with her plan. And we also have Aurora intervening once again, being the voice of conscience, the voice for life, and the moral choice to preserve life and not to kill. Aurora says, you see, truly see what you intend to kill, Rachel, not the cosmos, but people, living beings who know nothing of Phoenix, nor the cause she champions, nor the rationale she uses to justify their unwitting, unwilling sacrifice. Behold each individual, unique and special, because it has been granted the supreme gift, life. Weigh that life in the balance. Can you slay each one? Steal away that gift? That is what this is all about. Will you be their executioner? You face the ultimate choice, the ultimate test, as your mother did before you. Now make it. So again, another stunning page, another superb moment in this issue. So, it's not just Jim Starlin that can do Marvel Cosmic stories. This is up there with the best of his. And then, just unexpectedly almost, we flash back to, we're back in San Francisco. We're looking out, our point of view is out from now the darkened porch of Jessica Drew's house. And Rachel has changed her mind, but she considers her decision a failure. And Aurora says otherwise. Because you could not kill, because you could not slaughter countless innocents, a strange failure that. And Rachel says, but look, the Beyonder will, he'll destroy everything. And Aurora's point to her is, and that infinite cost will be upon his conscience. So then we get some interesting reflections here from Wolverine and Magneto on the moral questions raised by the choice that faced Rachel and her ultimate decision. Wolverine says, I have the right to choose how to end my life, and I'll kill if I've got cause, but I'm not an executioner. We do that, we play the Beyonder's game, proving ourselves to be no better than him. So interesting how Claremont is unpacking here and developing on the moral quandary conundrum. And we even get Magneto's perspective, where he says with kind of tears in his eyes, and I like the use of geotone here by Al Williamson as well. Excellent use of geotone in the previous issue and this one. But Magneto says, in the early days of our friendship, Charles Xavier asked me if I would slay the infant Adolf Hitler, an innocent baby, to spare the world the horror of the Holocaust. I said yes. Then he asked, would I slay Hitler's grandparents? I said yes again. I would gladly pay any price, make any sacrifice to expunge such transcendent evil. Okay, but then what he says is, but now I wonder. So he has a second thought about all of that now based on what he's just witnessed and Rachel's decision. But look who arrives. It's the Beyonder. And interesting here, some little character moments from Claremont where Wolverine says to Colossus, it's the main event, on your toes. And what are these two going to do possibly against the Beyonder? But we get Colossus's thoughts, how he wished he could see his parents in Russia a final time. And Wolverine thinks of his beloved Mariko, who of course, remember, broke off the engagement with him. So these are their final thoughts. And the Beyonder has come to tell them that he's disappointed, that he hoped they'd go out with a bang, but they flubbed it. And so here he is. This is the end of your road, X-Men. Remember, he's expunged the New Mutants from existence in New Mutants 37. So what's going to happen here? I hope you plan to go down swinging. Not that you have a prayer of winning, but I really enjoy a good scrap. If not, I'll terminate you where you stand. So the only thing to do here, of course, is argue with him. So they do. And Kitty puts on Illyana's soul armour and attacks him. Who the heck do you think you are? There's a word for creeps like you, bully. And she gives him a piece of her mind. Everything I've heard of you, from the moment you appeared, everything I've seen myself tells me you're cruel, capricious, wicked. Pick a nasty word, it'll fit. You hurt people, and because it doesn't matter to you, you seem to figure it won't to them. So we're getting a moral reckoning here, voiced by Kitty, towards the Beyonder. And she continues and says, you play with us as if we're puppets provided solely for your amusement. And now that you're bored, now that your precious game isn't working out the way you want, you'll simply throw away the toys and start again. But the Beyonder's got his point. He offered humanity oneness with creation, but he was refused. And Aurora says, yes, because to have meaning, such glory must be earned. We, all people, must grow into it naturally, as Phoenix has begun to do with her power, as her mother never had the chance to do. So now Phoenix steps forward, and she says to him, it was no accident you're allowing me to retain the power that he gave her in the previous issue. You know my thoughts and fears, the shadows in my soul, the dark side of my nature. You knew what my mom did and set me up to follow in her footsteps. So she realizes he was manipulating her and that he hoped that she would do what she planned to do with the Macran crystal, he wanted to go back into a state of oneness. He wouldn't be destroyed by what she did, but he would go back into a state of oneness with no multiplicity, no other lives to bother him. And so he says to her, okay, you are of no more use to me, therefore I require the return of what is rightfully mine in full. So she gives him back his power, but she also gives him what she witnessed when she changed her mind about destroying the universe. That is the experience of all the lives in the universe. He tries to make Phoenix stop, but she will not. So he is enlightened, whether he likes it or not. And we're told that he sought his power, but this is far, far more than even he can bear. All that Phoenix experienced, the totality of life in all its forms, all its infinite glory, is now his. And it breaks him. He never conceived what it was like, what it could be like. So this has given him pause. And Wolverine says to him, you said you wanted to learn what it was to be human, but how can you when you're immortal? Everything we do, everything we are or hope to be, is framed by the shadow of death. You can't know us without knowing that. And the Beyonder replies, so I must cease to be or a universe. But perhaps it's not that, perhaps that's a false dichotomy. And Kitty intervenes here and makes reference to Nightcrawler's Catholicism. She says, in Nightcrawler's faith, it's believed that God so loved the world and its people that he gave up his only begotten son to save them. If it were the X-Men's choice, we'd know what to do. But you, who are so powerful, can't figure it out. Out of the mouths of babes, he responds, it is a concept, a thought worth considering. And so he winks out of the location there. He wherever it is he goes next. Secret Wars number 9 for the climax of his story. But he tells them by way of valediction, I think your race is truly blessed. Do not squander it. Okay, and he's gone. And the sun rises. But Colossus asks, tell me, my friends, did we make a difference? And Ororo has the final word, we yet live, Colossus. That is answer enough for now. So quite a philosophically deep, sophisticated, almost religious at certain points issue from Claremont. Very interesting, his response to having to deal with crossing over with Secret Wars 2 and this figure of the Beyonder and how to write a story that would be meaningful, and developing Rachel Phoenix's character along the way, giving her the idea to undo what her mother did in Uncanny X-Men 108, but ultimately choosing not to do so, and coming to the means of getting the Beyonder to see something, to experience something that would change his mind about destroying the X-Men. So I do hope that you enjoyed the review and commentary on this issue, Uncanny X-Men 203. If you enjoyed the video, please like it. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.